When I was a little girl, I loved American Girl dolls. And I would come home from school every day, and I wouldn't do my homework. I would get out my dolls, and I'd dress them in their little clothes and make their little beds and set up tea parties, because the way I saw it, homework didn't matter. This was practice for what I was supposed to be when I grew up. Now, the first time I was in the American Girl doll store, I was about 4, and the last time I was there, I was older than I'd care to admit. But as we were walking out, I caught a glimpse of an American Girl doll science set, and it made me unreasonably excited to see a little plastic microscope with slides and a composition notebook, and even little plastic beakers filled with clear green plastic that just screams science. But of course my brother was still asking if we could leave the store because, as I realized while we walked back down Fifth Avenue, this was all nothing new to him. I remember seeing those little gummy-making toys with the mad scientist, and little boys would make gummy spiders and worms to scare their big sisters. And I would see the commercials and think, man, I wish they made those for girls. Children's toys are wrought with gender stereotypes, with girls miming domestic duties, cooking, cleaning, or child-rearing, or else being completely made up like princesses and fairies. Meanwhile, boys' toys are more spatial. They appeal to the imagination and supply future career options and interests. These can be anything from telescopes to spaceships, from building blocks to fire trucks. And this trend of pushing boys to be successful and girls to be less than continues on throughout adolescence and into adulthood. Girls aged 9 through 12 are more likely than boys to quit their hobbies, extracurriculars, and after-school activities. An interest in science in girls is shown to decrease from age 12 and younger. In a study of 4th grade boys and girls, 10-year-old girls were 2 times more likely than their male classmates to say they were bad at math, even when their abilities were the same. Girls also tend to self-select out of higher-level math and science courses in high school, which can limit their chances of entering a career or a major in science, technology, engineering, or math. The reality is, we don't raise our girls like we raise our boys, and the gender divide begins in the toy aisle. This separation of interest from an early age leads girls to believe that certain topics aren't for us, that specifically that science isn't for us, that research and experiments and opinions aren't what we should be spending our time with. For instance, my family's had Patriots tickets since my dad was little, but I went to my first game just last month. When I asked him why, he said it was because I had never shown interest. But how am I supposed to show interest in something I've always been told wasn't mine to have interest in? How are girls supposed to be interested in topics in school when they're told they are off limits? We are sending these signals to children that their future careers and interests depend not on their abilities, their skills, their likes or their dislikes, but on their gender. Girls often fall behind in mathematics and science courses in school, and many use this to prove that girls are bad at math. However, studies show that 15% of high school boys would like a job in engineering, but only 2% of girls would. Similarly, 31% of boys would like a job in tech, but only 2% of girls agree. And if girls have no interest in the topic at hand because they are always told they shouldn't, how can they be expected to perform? How can they be expected to succeed? These subtle but powerful messages come out through a girl's childhood that can and often do halt her interest. These are statements from family, from friends, from peers, and from teachers, and even strangers that discourage her from joining the workforce, let alone pursuing STEM. Girls are always given lessons from their parents. Oh, let your brother do that. Don't get your dress dirty. Oh, honey, don't you want the pink one? I remember 5 years old in the food court in the mall, and I got a G.I. Joe in my Happy Meal. I must have been crying about it because my mom asked the man behind the counter if I could have a girl's toy. And to my delight, he handed over a pink plastic Hello Kitty toaster filled with sticky notes that looked like toast. And I was overjoyed because even at the tender age of 5, I only accepted toys that mimed what my mother did. I never stopped to ask why a girl's toy meant that I got a pink one, or why a girl's toy meant that I got a toaster, or why 2 years later I didn't question when my brother said that blue was a boy color and I had to repaint my room. All I know is that I painted it the brightest color pink I could find. The upside of this phenomenon of gender stereotypes prohibiting our interests from a young age is that it is all within our control as a society. A false sense of underperformance is shown to lead to the gender gap in the tech industry today, and according to the Organization of Economic Development, much of this can be accredited to lack of parental encouragement. Now, this is not to say that young girls and their parents simply need to believe in themselves, but it is the job of parents and teachers of toy companies and television shows to tell little girls that they too can do whatever their brothers can do. But it's also a bit of a chicken and egg problem. A new study from June shows that in communities with more women in higher position of STEM, high school girls are more likely to enroll in physics classes, which we know can be a segue into future careers, majors, and interests. We're told from a young age to pick a role model, but with such a limited pool of known and successful women to choose from, young girls have trouble setting a goal. Sorry. Sorry, I'm blanking. Young girls have, with this lack of education and this lack of representation, leads young girls to just reinforce what they already believe to be true about their abilities. Because our core beliefs, our opinions and convictions of who we are and who we are to be are ingrained in us before we can speak and before we can read, when the only thing we know how to do is play with toys. Thank you.